Hey, YouTube, what is up? I have my friend Kasim here, as well as my friend Jack, who might be making an appearance later on. We decided to do a Banlist prediction video as we just got the new Battle of Legend Heroes Revenge set. We are getting a ton of reprints as well as some new cards. So that means that the meta is going to change, and it means that a ban list is now closer than farther away. If you look at the ban list, the earliest possible date we could have got one was the 1st of July, and now we are officially 12 days into July, so I think we're going to get a ban list relatively soon. Kasim, what do you think?
Hopefully we get it by this month.
Do you think we're going to get it before or after the Megaton? I think it is possible to get it after the Megaton at this point.
Yeah, it's very possible, but you never know with Konami.
Yeah, especially Konami of North America. They've been historically known for just dropping ban lists pretty much out of the blue. I appreciate the last time they had a ban list, though, where they kind of gave us at least some semblance of an idea of when we were going to get it. Kasim, don't cough. Don't interrupt me. It's so rude. Wait, was that Jack?
No.
Okay. It's okay. Anyway, the first card I want to discuss with you guys, Maxi, should have come back.
I think Max should come back to 2 or 3. A lot of people make the argument that putting a card at 2 is no different than putting it at 3. But I think for a card like that, it definitely makes a difference.
I agree with you. 3 Maxi is very strong, but that's definitely a card that if it does come back, can't come back at 1. Otherwise, it'll just be blowouts if you do draw it, which kind of unbalances the game. Putting it at 2 or 3 gives you a decent enough of, like, I guess it gives you a good enough chance of seeing it that your opponent fears it and they might not overextend. That's probably the best way to put it. But yeah, I think 2 to 3 for Maxi is not too bad of a call. Do you have anything you want to say, Jack, or is that pretty much in line with what you're thinking?
I just want the card back. I'm just a fan of that card.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's almost like a legacy holdover from an older time. Like, Maxi was just such a powerful card back then that a lot of people do remember it fondly because it did really do a lot. Like, I mean, there's no downsides. Either your opponent stops their entire turn or you just draw an ungodly amount of cards, especially in, like, if it were to come back in these formats like Japan has. Off of a Thunder Dragon combo, you might be able to deck your opponent out. All right, the next card I wanted to discuss, Nightmare Mermaid. Do you think it should be banned? Do you think that it is justified as a card? What's your thoughts?
I think that card should be banned.
Do you think it should be banned because using 2 cards to go into a basically full combo is too powerful? Or is there a different reason that you think Nightmare Mermaid should be banned?
This might sound a little harsh, but I think the deck is too rewarding to players who do not deserve to be rewarded.
So you're
Uh,
saying kind of like how if a person has an Orcus deck and a person has a Sky Striker deck, the person that has the Orcus deck, if they're newer to the deck, will still be able to do relatively well as compared to somebody with a Sky Striker deck, where it's like the skill of the pilot regardless of the skill of the deck kind of thing.
exactly.
Okay, I could see the argument for that. Do you think that there are any other hits that should be made necessarily for that deck? Perhaps Rusty Bardiche as well. I know it's another card that people feel like should be hit in tandem with this deck just because Orcus is the most predominant deck playing it right now. What's your thoughts?
No, I think Rusty Bardish needs to stay. A lot of decks that aren't particularly what we would call tier 1s
Mm-hmm.
don't play Bardiche, but many decks that are tier 2s and tier 3s do play Bardiche. And I think it's unjust to those decks to just hit that card.
So you think it gives lower tier decks a leg up that they normally wouldn't have?
Yes.
My problem with that is that cards like Rusty Bardiche, as well as cards like Dangers, Jackalope, Tsuchinoko, and Nessie, those cards I feel like do give tier 2 and 3 decks a huge leg up. It gives them a lot of added consistency. It gives them some extra power. And it's not to say that the cards are broken by any means. Bardiche is a very strong card. But I think that the problem is there are decks that are tier 1 that can also abuse these cards. Like you said before in a different video we were recording, if you look at Japan's format, it's still pretty much the same 2 or 3 decks topping. Sky Strikers, Thunder Dragons, Orcus, Salamangreat. Without the inclusion of the Dangers, these decks are still topping, but I think it's the inclusion of cards like the Danger Engine and Rusty Bardiche, which kind of add too much consistency to tier 1 decks. Do you agree with that or no?
it's not that the consistency to the tier one decks that's the problem. Is that it adds general consistency to the decks all around the format that we wouldn't consider tier ones. Decks that people would play for fun.
Hmm.
Because in reality, when you look at it, like these decks that are winning,
Hmm.
right now weren't any different than how they were winning in Japan. Do you get what I mean?
Hmm. I
So
understand what
like,
you're saying.
yeah. So I understand in a way that they do make the decks a little more powerful.
Hmm.
But in reality, without the dangers, a deck like Orcus would probably still be tier one anyway.
So you're saying it's not necessarily needed for tier 1, but is for tier 2.
Yes, like Thunder Dragons, I do understand that dangers did create and break that deck.
Hmm.
But Dark Warrior Turbo, another example.
Hmm.
But at the same time, though, there's another more variety for the game.
Okay. I
And
can understand that.
that's all we want at the end of the day, right? More variety in our formats.
Yeah, I think that's something that most people can agree with. They don't want multiple like instances of tier 0 formats happening back to back or anything like that. They'd rather have 3, 4, 5 decks that all are competitively viable in some aspect.
Yep.
All right, the next card I want to ask you, Kasim, because you lucked out on this one in a big way. For those of you that don't know, Kasim did very well at Nats, but lost to somebody slow playing him in the last possible round and basically played to a tie in, what was it, round 12?
However many rounds it was.
Yeah, in the very last round before the top cut, his opponent slow played him into a tie. After that, Kasim decided to pick up Shadal's. And about a week after that, Shadal's won a contest to get a new structure deck, causing him to make a very good investment, pretty much. How much did you pay originally for your constructs, you said?
It was like $40.
For 3 ulti firsts.
Yeah.
And now, now how much are they?
I think they're like, what, 30, 40s each?
Yeah, it's kind of insane. And that's the card I want to ask you about. Do you think El Shadal Construct should come off the ban list, especially with the fact that they're reprinting Shadal's now? Oh, I think I talked over you. Could you say it again?
Anything Shadal rated should be at 3.
You don't think it would make any big impact really to have it?
Um, One thing I do like about Konami now is that when they do go for structure decks, as of recent, they do have some really good cards in there. I do understand sometimes the synergy is in there, and I understand that, but like I am hoping that with this next set, with the new structure decks Shadals are getting, that it's actually very viable.
Hmm. I
And
think
I'm
that's a
pretty
fair
sure it will
assumption.
be. I'm very sure.
I don't think they would have a popularity poll and then give them a non-viable deck out of that. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
if Sacred Beasts won, it would have been a little bit of a different story. But for Shadal's, I feel like they have enough power from the past as well as the ability to add so many new cards. I think the deck really has some power. So you think Construct should come back to 3 then?
Yes, I believe context should come back to 3.
All right. The next card I want to ask you about, a card that is very near and dear to my heart because I just bought the TP version. Should Harpies Feather Duster come back?
Yes.
You think it should
Or
come
Heavy
back?
Storm.
Okay, or Heavy Storm. I think Heavy Storm might be a little too broken just because it destroys your cards and can set up too much stuff. Wait, is Heavy Storm the one that bounces, or is that Giant True Nade?
Giant Trinade.
Ah, okay. Yes, Giant True Nade.
Heavy Storm destroys all spell and traps on the field.
Okay. I think that's a fair assumption. Japan's had it for a very long time, and I think it balances out some of this more back row heavy stuff that we're starting to see come out of Mystic Mind.
Heavy Storm, you can't play in the decks that like rely on back row.
Yeah, you can't play it in Altergeists or Sky
but
Strikers
something
necessarily.
Like Harpies Duster, you can.
Mm-hmm.
So in reality, like, is that really something you'd want? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Would you want the decks that do that, the control decks that do have an unfair advantage, probably later on in the meta, that have the ability to just clear your back row and keep theirs safe?
I think we're more likely to get Feather Duster than Giant True Nade, to be honest. Not Giant True Nade, Heavy Storm. I keep mixing these 3 cards up. But I do agree with you. I think Harpies Feather Duster should come back. I think some people also... There's definitely people that know things in advance for Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, there's cards that spike before the ban list happens that are the cards that come off. And whether they're good at predicting or they have some insider knowledge, Harpies Feather Duster is a card that actually has recently spiked in price as well. I think the prismatic version of it went from being 10 to 20, and the legendary collection versions went from being like 6 to 7 to all the way up to like 15, 16. So I just think that's indicative of what people are feeling. I think they think it's time for Harpies Feather Duster to come back. That's just something I kind of wanted to add in there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so are you just Skull Dread? Should that card be limited?
I believe that card should be banned or limited.
Really? I feel like limiting it would be enough. But why do you think it should be banned? Just in tandem with dangers is too much?
I think the card's seen a lot of play, enough play, and it's a very powerful card with any deck that can use with any deck that's able to use the Guard Dragon combo.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think any deck is able to use that. It's a little too unfair.
Okay, so like you're saying with the inclusion of the guard dragons that it's a little too unfair. On
Yeah.
that note, do you think the guard dragon should be hit?
It would be nice for LP to get hit. That card just opens up too many windows for too many decks to extend their combos. You could bring out Destrudo, you could bring out RDMD, you could bring out Brotar, you could bring out Phantasme, you could bring out Eclipse Weaver. And there's just so many cards that card can summon that could just overextend the combo when you shouldn't have any extenders.
Mhm.
And I do understand that. I do understand that it's you have to have the combo, but at the same time, that it's a little too overpowered. But everybody should have access to the guard dragons, so it is kind of balanced at the same time, because they're just super rares from the last other set, right?
Yeah, they're not high rarity or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So as long as everybody can play it, then it's kind of fair, right?
Do you classify that as kind of like how the dangers can help out any deck? So like any deck that could run feasibly like a guard dragon engine can get that boost, and it's not necessarily something that's limited by like price, kind of like how dangers are all secrets and slightly more expensive than they used to be.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. The next card I want to ask you about is Colossus. This card I feel like can go to 1, and it really wouldn't make that much of a difference, especially because we have the dangers here in the TCG. Do you think they're even going to bother hitting
I
Colossus?
feel like that card needs to get banned. Colossus is a very oppressive card to many decks.
Now, do you say that because you love Sky Strikers?
No, Colossus is literally anti-tier 2 and tier 3 decks.
That is very true. The fact that it prevents searching and it can prevent its own destruction is a little too strong, I think.
Yes, that card has had its time in the meta, and it's time for it to go.
On a related note, do you think that the full Thunder Dragon combo is probably one of the strongest combos we've seen in terms of what it prevents your opponent from doing? I was just putting some thought into this before, like what like an ideal end
No,
board is.
I think the worst one is Goki Gumlar Rip 6.
Yeah, that that is very
Nothing
true
that's
because you just don't get a play off that.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than that.
Okay, that's a very fair rebuttal. Next card, Sky Striker, Mecha Widow Anchor, and Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. Do you think that either of those cards are going to be limited or banned, seeing as they were just reprinted?
Most cards are gonna get touched. I believe multi-roll will either get banned or put to 1.
Okay, so you're saying multi-roll more so than other cards would be the one to get hit just because of the recursion?
And
Okay,
also because that card wasn't reprinted, so it's
that is a
looking like
that is a pretty fair assumption because usually Konami doesn't ban the card they reprint; they ban the card that is related to the reprint, right? I guess the only exception would be Zodiacs after the Megaton, where they kind of got like wombo combo ban hammered, but I think that was just necessary for that deck to go away. All right, the next card I want to ask you about. Ooh, I think I hit Bardiche already, and I mentioned the dangers before, but I did want to touch on it again. Do you think that any of the dangers will be or should be limited?
I guess you could be biased about it and look at it in 2 ways, but I don't think the danger should be hit. Personally,
Based
you
on
think?
based on the reprints that they're announcing or the fact that they're reprinting Tsuchinoko, I do not think that they're going to hit the dangers necessarily because that's one of the few things that's going to push the Megatons. Considering the fact that they're not putting Savage Strike, which is easily the best set of the last year, they're not putting it in the Megaton at all, and they instead opted.
Among the better sets.
I think Savage Strike is one of the better sets to from the last year, main set wise. Yeah, it's definitely one of the better ones.
Think it's better than Soul Fusion?
Not necessarily, but Soul Fusion didn't really have the highest value. Soul Fusion had like the full Thunder Dragon deck come out of it, but really,
You had the Dragon deck, you had Levenair, you had Snake.
Mhm.
Pretty sure there was more. I just can't think of the top of my head. I think Soul Fusion was one of the better sets we've had.
Sunlight Wolf.
yeah, something
Oh,
like
that
Wolf is
is
true.
true. That
It's
is
like
true.
a
Actually.
$9 rare at one point. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
let's
feel like you're right on that one, actually. Soul Fusion's a very strong reprint set, but I always feel like the last set Konami produces before Megaton comes out,
they
like the
also have
last.
Tiger Top and Soul Fusion too.
That is true. But I feel like
Yep.
the May set that always comes out is usually the strongest one.
Oh, Tragic as well.
2 years ago was Flood. You're right. Soul Fusion is actually a lot better set than I was remembering it being. I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
guess
because we were at YCS Canada, so I got too hung up on the Thunder Dragons in it.
Poker should have returned. It was just a decent, a really good set in my opinion.
hmm I think that's pretty fair. But do you think that Soul Fusion is strong enough to carry the Megaton without Savage Strike?
No,
So do you think that the reason that they chose to include Dark Saviors as well as introduce this new prismatic rarity, is that like an attempt for them to what is your thought process on them including this? Like this is the first time in recent memory that they've changed the Megaton to include a side set as well as to change to an exclusive new rarity. Do you think
I
it's
think
just to push
prismatic
product
rares
or?
are very good for the game.
Mhm.
I personally think they're needed. We need something like prismatics in the game.
Why do you think that? Is that because additional rarities increase value, or do you think that like Megaton reprints shouldn't be necessarily the same type of rare as the original
I
printing?
think we're tired of seeing the same rarities, and we need to see some new stuff. We need to see some ghost rares. We need to see some. We need to see ghost rares. We just need to see more kind of rarities, man. Prismatic rares.
Yeah.
Rarities are getting old. They're getting just tired of seeing them.
I think the fact that we pretty much are limited to only getting secret rares in main sets, and on top of that, we're getting pretty much sets that include a secret rare in every pack at this point, is kind of taking away from the fact that secret rare is supposed to be something high, like rarity wise. The fact
Yep.
that, what is it? Battles of Legend just came out and you can get a secret rare in every pack. I think we
Yeah.
should have something higher to aspire to. Prismatic secret rares could be a cool idea for a reprint. Do you think that OTS Ultimate Rares should also be reserved only for OTS packs, or do you think that Ultimate Rares should make a return to main sets?
I think Ghost Rare should make a return to main sets. I think the Ultimate Rares, the OTS packs are a great idea.
Mhm.
Encourage people to enter OTS tournaments. That's a great idea in my opinion.
Mhm.
But I honestly believe that we just need a different kind of rarity.
Do you think we should get something more akin to the 20th anniversary rares that was put into Japanese product a couple years
I
ago?
wish we could get some of the rarities they have. They have some weird rarities.
Yeah,
Like
I've seen
Platinum Parallel Secret Rare and
the hieroglyphic
Gold
rare is pretty
Parallel
cool too.
rares. Huh?
The hieroglyphic rare is pretty cool too, where it has like the ancient
Yeah,
Egyptian
there's so
text.
many cool things they have that I wish we could have, but you never know. I think the prismatic secret we're getting is one of the first steps we're getting to
Mhm.
just many more better things.
Okay, so you think it's the first step in the right direction then?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, the last card I want to ask you about, let me just make sure it's the last one on my list. Yes, it is. Salamangreat Gazelle. Do you think that card should go to 1? I personally think so.
I think that card should go to 1.
I think it's just fair. They have enough searchers. They have what? 3 mining,
They have
3
8.
circle.
You have 8 of Gazelle will go to 1.
Yeah, like debug is 1, Gazelle itself is 1, and then the 3 mining and the 3 circle, right?
So, yep.
I think that's just pretty fair. I think Gazelle puts that deck way too over the top in terms of recursion and extendability. It's basically a Swiss Army knife in that it just basically sends any cards you need at the right time. The fact that you can recur it, summon it, and damage that, but you can't even prevent it is kind of bonkers.
Yeah, it's kind of unfair.
Yeah, I agree. The fact that you can't stop it is kind of nuts. All right, well, thank you, Kasim, for helping me make this video, and to Jack for saying 2 words in the background.
Hi, Jake.
Oh, he's not going to talk now. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, there's a couple more cards. So we've got like Super Poly. I think should go to 3.
I think that's a fair assumption as well. I think it just prevents decks from overextending too much. Kind of similar to Maxi, where it's like it's a really strong punish if it does go through.
Yeah, it just kills a. I think a Freddy Archfiend should go to 2 or 3.
Mhm.
There's so many. There's just many cards, man.
Here, let me go over the. I actually have it open right now, so I can pull up the ban list right here. The more I look at this ban list, there are a couple cards that I do think have the possibility of coming off without making too much noise. Obviously, there's been an argument for a long time for people to bring back the Dragon Rulers. at like 1 for each of them. What's your thoughts on that?
You see that there was an OCG deck list that I saw where
Mm-hmm.
they played just all the Dragon support cards with one Tempest and one of the baby Tempest Lightning.
Mm-hmm.
And they would put up the same boards that Thunder, like similar boards to what the Thunder Dragon deck was putting up.
So you're saying that with one baby and one big dragon for the D rulers was more than enough to let them extend in the OCG without dangers to a full Thunder Dragon combo, pretty much.
I don't remember exactly what the full board was, but I just remember them comboing off super hard.
Okay. So maybe that's a card that really can come back then feasibly. What's your thoughts on Pendulum support coming back? Astrograph Sorcerer, let's say Skullcrobat Joker. Those are cards that bounce around a lot, but...
Come back.
Say it again?
I don't think Astrograph Sorcerer should come back.
You don't think it's fair? Too strong?
I don't know much about pendulums, right? But I do know with how the game state is now. I believe with a card like that, it could get pretty. I think that could get pretty. It would be
Pretty
bad.
nutty? Okay.
Yeah, it'd be pretty nutty.
Do you think we're going to get Zen Mighty back at all?
I doubt it. Maybe Inzectors. Go with the Inzector cards probably.
There's only one Inzector card left still.
Which one is it?
Dragonfly.
I think Dragonfly can come back. What is it at? One? Yeah, I think that card can come back to 3.
What's your thoughts on...
You should start rank 3s that don't do nothing.
Oh, seems like I'm getting a phone call.
I think Master should come back to 1.
Okay, so this is really funny. I'm getting a phone call right now, my house phone, and I'm actually not wearing pants right now, so I can't get up to answer it, so we're going to have to suffer through this.
Thanks for that.
Well, I have a
think-
t-shirt
I
on.
think
You can
Master
see this much
come
from the video, so it's fine. I don't have pants on.
Masterpiece needs to come back to 1.
I think Masterpiece at 1's not that bad, to be honest, too.
Metal Foe Draco needs to come back.
What are your thoughts on Lavalval Chain and Emerald?
No,
You think they're too strong?
No.
I don't think either of them should come back.
What about Ptolemaeus? I think that can feasibly come back.
I don't think that card should come back either.
Really?
Just any 2 rank 4s. If the Orcus deck doesn't get banned,
Mhm.
they get on the rank 4, they're ending on Infinity now.
That is true. They get another negate on top of that. What about Chicken Game? That card doesn't seem like it necessarily needs to be banned.
You need to play an extra. You can't make Infinity if you end on 2.
I
It's
think
2
you
or more.
attach the
You
the
detach
Deltros.
3. Yeah, but it's an end phase.
It's fine, and you just make it on their turn.
Alright, so you quick effected the Nova.
Oh yeah, you can. My bad. Play Pallades.
That's the only one you can do.
They go with Pallades, yeah. Never mind. But no, I still think that card's. You know what? Forget what I said. Yep. I think Ptolemaeus can come back. I had its effect longer in my head.
Okay. I see Metamorphosis and my goat mind just like started racing.
I don't think
But
Dryden should come back.
No, I think Dryden shouldn't come back either. That's just an unfair card.
Because Rad's still at 2, right?
1.
1. I think Barrage is at 1.
No,
Or is it
Barrage is
banned?
at 3.
Oh, really? I always mixed up the OCG list from back then because I was so focused on it. Yeah, so are there any cards you guys wanted to talk about besides this? Jack, you want Deep Sea Diva not being limited or what?
That card needs to stay at 1. That card's too strong.
Okay. That's a fair assumption from a guy that really loves water then.
Yeah, that card's very strong.
Oh,
You get 2 monsters for free. You get 2 monsters off a normal summon that's going to give you a +1.
I just feel like there's some cards that are unnecessary on here. Like, does Trishula need to really be at 1? Does Omega really need to be at 1 at this point?
Have you heard of Dark Synchro Hand Loop?
I've heard of
Yeah.
Dark Synchro Hand Root because I played Patrick when he did it.
So you want those cards to be at 3 each, and then get.
Well, the way I remember it playing was where you had to actually use Level Eater a lot. And because Level Eater's banned, Dandelion's banned, there's a lot of cards. I don't know if they could fulfill the whole thing now, especially with like Gofu at 1.
There's probably a way you can do it.
I mean, Omega does remove itself, but I can see what you're saying. What about Beatrice or the Burning Abyss cards in general?
I think Graph and Seer need to go to 2 or 3.
Yeah.
That deck deserves to have some time in the spotlight,
Mhm.
even if Shadals are coming back. If they unban some of the Shadal construct, then there's no reason why they shouldn't put Sierra Graph at 2.
That's a fair assumption. Those decks were powerful against each other, and if you're bringing one back from the same time period, why not bring the one that counters it, or at least played against it in the same time back as well? It's not like Burning Abyss is all that broken. They have it. What, they have 1 Dante in Japan, right? Or do they have it back now?
I think they still have 1. I'm not sure. I don't know the Japan list too
I-
well.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think they have 2, probably, maybe? I'm not quite sure. Don't quote me on anything.
Okay. I'm just peering down the list right now. Do you think Emergency Teleport should come back? or Gateway of the Six. I know a lot of people were talking about that one last time around.
Problem with E-Tele is there's always something that comes out that just breaks that card out of nowhere. So if it comes back to 3 and then it gets broken again, it'll get hit again. Because it was at 1 for a while. It came back to 2, and then Cosmo started abusing it, and then it went back to 1. Something like that.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
All right, well, set rotation is definitely staying on there until Mystic Mind goes away. Malicious, Luster Pendulum, Necroface, Super Poly, Terraforming. All right. Other than that, I don't think there's any other things I want to discuss, unless you guys have a specific card in mind.
No.
Oh, do you think we should get Warning back to 2? That's a good question. Doesn't Japan have it at 2?
I think we should get Warning or Judgment too.
Okay, that's pretty fair.
Those are good cards. I like those cards.
All right. Well, thank you guys for helping me make this video. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, honorable guest. All right. I guess that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Click thumbs up and subscribe because this video is free. It's fun. And I don't know if you see Kasim, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Yo, please, guys, let us know what you want to see in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Let me know what kind of content you guys are actually interested in. Because, you know, this channel's starting out pretty much from scratch again. So let me know.